Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. In the name of God, the Compassionate, the Merciful. We'll start this program, which is about Mawlana Jalaluddin Rumi and his understanding of the self, of the human essence. One of the essential teaching of Mawlana Rumi in his book, the Masnawi, which is his masterpiece, is about finding yourself and knowing yourself, and taking this journey to the center of universe, what he calls the microcosm of the macrocosm, which is the heart of the human being. And he gives us not only the GPS coordinates of this journey, but he also tells us how we can get there. And once we get to the center of the cosmos, what do we do then? What we find there at the essence of the human being? Rumi always talks about the potential of the human being as well, because some of us, we only see what we are, but he always sees what we can become, that insan al-kamil, that perfected human being, that completed human being, which is for him, it's every human being. All of us have that potential to become that man and woman who are at that station of kamal, of completion and perfection. Most people, Rumi says, they don't go through this journey because of the fear, and that fear of darkness, because this road, this travel that they would take is dark. Just like people are afraid of a journey in the night if there's no lights, people are afraid of a journey that is inward, and that's what Rumi is talking about, the inward journey that is dark, and people don't want to travel because of one of the things that removes the light from the inward journey is sins and acts of disobedience. And he says, and this is a very hopeful message from Mawlana Rumi to all of those people that are afraid to take the inward travel because there's so much pain and suffering and so much hatred and anger. They're filled with dark forces inside of them. Rumi said that if you start walking on the inward travel, the nature of you traveling inward, it will start removing all of the dark clouds that is covering you and blocking your own moon from you. And he said, if you start traveling on this path, you would see that the clouds will move and the moon will shine and it will light the way to your destination. And this is why he said in the Diwan Shams, he said, Qamari jan sifate dar rah dil payda shud. Dar rah dil chi latifa ast safar. Hich magu. He said that I start traveling on this path, this inward journey. And then I saw this illuminating moon appear. So I asked, this is what Rumi asked, his master, Shams Tabriz. He said, whose moon is that? I see a moon inside of me. Whose moon is that? And Shams told him, this is your own moon that was blocked from the clouds that you created. Once you start going on this path, all of these dark clouds moves, and what happens, the moon comes out. And he said, once your moon started to shine, it is then that it lights the way, because you don't need another person's moon, because you have a moon inside yourself, right? All of us, we have this moon. All of us. Rumi gives this many examples in his books. In the Fihi Ma Fihi, he talks about Jesus. He said, you all have a Jesus inside of you. You're like Mary, the mother of Jesus. And until you don't go through the pain of childbirth, you will not give birth to your Jesus. And that's what he's talking about. This inward journey, sometimes it could be really painful. It could be to start on the journey is difficult. But if you keep going, once you give birth to your Jesus, that's what Rumi is saying. You have to give birth. And this is why he said that when he was asked about why your Masnawi, your book, when you were writing it, you wrote the first chapter, and then the second chapter, it took so long before the second chapter you start writing it. He started his second chapter by saying, Muddati in Masnawi ta'khir shud. مهلت بایست تا خون شیر شد تا نزاید بخت تو فرزند نو خون نگردد شیر شیرین خوش شنو. He said, yes, I agree, this Masnavi was delayed for a period of time. It takes time in order for the blood to turn into milk. Until you don't give birth to the child of your destiny, your blood will not turn into milk. In other words, this journey is going to squeeze you. It's going to squeeze you. But what comes out of it, that's what Rumi is his focus is on. So he says that this travel, this safar, is towards what? Towards the human heart. Towards the human heart. So once we experience this light, because the light of the moon will take us where? It will take us towards our heart. It will take us. Why the heart? Because the heart of the human being, that's where is the light of God resides, in the heart of the human being. So that's where we're going. In the nature of the heart is that once you go and once you see that light that is in your heart, it turns the zinc into gold. That's what it does. It turns, it's like a chemistry lab that mixes whatever you are, whoever you are. It doesn't matter. Once you connect with the light of God in your heart, it is then that you turn into gold. And this is why one of the great scholar and thinker, our Sheikh said, he said, human beings are not disconnected from God. Rather, they're disconnected from their hearts, because the light of God is in everyone's heart. And if we connect with our hearts, it is then that we find ourselves and we find God. Now, Rumi tells a story about a man, and then this story, I think he kind of will highlight all of these things we were just talking about. He's going to highlight about something very important, that on this path, this inward journey, just like an outward journey, there is a prerequisite. And he talks about this prerequisite. What is this prerequisite that you need for the outward journey of life, but also you need for the inward journey to your heart? And he talks about this story of a man who's in love with this woman. And so he goes and he goes to see his beloved. So he says, "On yaki amad dar yari bezad. Gof yarash kisti ay mu'tamad." So the man went to the house of his beloved and started knocking on the door. And he said, the beloved said, "Who's at the door? Who's at the door?" Gof man. Goftash bera hangam nist. Dar cherin khane maqam kham nist. And he said, "It is I at the door. It's me." And the beloved said, "Go away from my door. Because in this place, there is not enough space for two eyes, for two me's." Right? It is me at the door. It is I at the door. And then she said, "No, go away. Because this is a place for people who are ripe and cooked, and you're raw. You're raw. You have to go away from me." You know, there's a famous saying in the Western movies, says, "This town ain't big enough for the both of us," right? There's a famous song as well. And that is the reality of this story. This is what Rumi is trying to teach us, that you have to remove dualism from yourself. So he says, "Kham ra juz atash hijr o firaq, ki pasad ki warahanad az nifaq." So the beloved said, the raw, he gives an advice to the raw. Now, what is the advice for the people who are raw? It is that you have to get cooked. And what cooks you is the fire of separation. That when you're separated, when you're not with the beloved, what does it do? It makes you ripe and it cooks you, but it also removes nifaq from you. Nifaq is dualism. Nifaq, the word nifaq comes from when you make holes in things, that's nifaq. That's why like gophers, you know, when you see they come from a hole and they go back from another hole, they dig the hole under the ground. That's a nature of a munafiq, because a munafiq, they always have another hole to come out from. They can never get stuck. What he's saying, that this dualism that is inside of you, this multiplicity that's inside of you, only thing that can cure it, that can heal it, is what? is this fire, this fire of hijr, this fire of separation, of just not being. This is the whole message of Rumi, that we were separated. The beginning of the Masnavi, we were separated from our beloved, from God. And this is why all of the things that we are happening to us is because of that separation, right? The complaint is from the separation, right? رفت آن مسکین و سال در سفر در فراق دوست سوزید از شرر. So this poor man goes on this journey for a year, and he starts burning from the pain of separation from his beloved. This pain of separation that Rumi talks about at the beginning of the Masnavi, where he says, بشنو از نی چون حکایت می کند از جدایی ها شکایت می کند. Listen to the reed, how it narrates a tale. It complains from separations. That's what he wanted to, the beloved wanted the lover to be in separation, because that's how you get right. That's how you become this insan al-kamil, this human being that lives at his highest potential. So he goes and he starts burning. He starts burning and burning from what? From the pain of separation. Now, there's a secret in this line of the Masnavi, in this part of the story. And the secret is, there's many things are happening. He is wandering in the desert. Two things are happening in reality. One, he's alone, right? One, he's alone. And the second, he's burning from the pain of separation from his beloved. Iqbal Rahmatullah alayhi said, in order to find yourself, how do you find yourself, and how do you find Allah? How do you find your Lord? He said, از همه کس کناره گیر صحبت آشنا طلب. هم از خدا خودی طلب، هم از خودی خدا طلب. He said, abandon everyone and be alone with the alone. Be alone with the alone. Seek the companionship of the only one who knows you, the only familiar one, which is God. God is the only familiar one. He said, then seek to know God through yourself, and seek to know yourself through the light of God. And this is what this man is doing. He is wandering in the desert alone with the alone. And he's trying to find himself in order to find his Lord. Then what happens after a year? پخته گشت آن سوخته پس بازگشت. This is a very amazing line. I've been working on this line for a while, and there's two words in here. One is pukhta, one is sukhta. Pukhta means the one that is cooked. Sukhta means the one that is burnt. Pukhta is for the outward reality of your life, and sukhta is for the inward reality of your life. And this is what Rumi is saying, that this man, he achieved both. He became cooked outwardly, and he became burnt inwardly. Now he's ready, right? پخته گشت آن سوخته پس بازگشت بازگرد خانه هم بازگشت. Then he came back and came at the door of the beloved. Now, watch this. حلقه زد بر در به صد ترس و ادب. He doesn't go and just keep knocking. He goes, he looks at the door when they had the knocking for the door, right? Now everybody has bells, you push the button, but this, what they call this, they used to have this halqa, on the doors, this giant steel made, and then you just keep knocking with those. He stands there before he knocks, right? He stands there. First, he looks at the house. Second, he looks at himself. Then he starts walking with adab. With adab. That is the prerequisite. That's what he was missing in the first time. So he goes, he knocks on the door with so much adab. Adab is manners, is comportment. Adab is to put things in their proper places. To put things in their proper places. So he goes and he goes, why? تا بنجهد بی ادب لفظ زلب. So nothing will come out of his mouth that is lack of adab, that has no manners. So now he's standing at the door. He's thinking about what he's going to say. He has full comportment. He has full adab. Then he knocks on the door and he's watching himself. This is also taqwa. This is this station where you're conscious of yourself, of your heart, and of your Lord. He's instead of complete consciousness that nothing comes out. Now he's fulfilling the prerequisite before he knocks. Then he knocks on the door. He knocks on the door. Now, I want to tell a story before we'll come back to this story, but I want to tell a story about what happens when you lose adab. What happened when you lose adab? Rumi has a story that he tells about the sailor and the grammarian. And he says, آن یک نحوی به کشتی در نشست رو به کشتیبان نمود آن خود پرست گفت از نو هیچ دانی گفت لا گفت نیم عمر تو شد در فنا. The grammarian, this grammarian who knew Arabic nahu, he got on this boat and he looked at the sailor and he said, "Oh sailor," in a very belittling way. Rumi says he looked at him in tahqir, and he said, "Do you know grammar?" And the sailor, who was really a ordinary person, he didn't know grammar. He said, "La, I don't know grammar." He said, "Oh, how you wasted half of your life not learning grammar," with so much arrogance, talking to the poor sailor. Rumi said he broke the heart of the sailor. He broke his heart, right? With his bad adab, even though he was learned, but he had enough knowledge to hate. This is the problem with having a little bit of knowledge, right? It's the problem with having a little bit of knowledge. So he looked down upon this man and he put him down and he broke the man's heart with his lack of adab. But the sailor didn't say anything, didn't respond. And this is a big secret that Rumi has given us in this line. If you abandon things for God, God will take care of you. But if you respond, then you do, that's it, you responded. So what do you need from God to do? So he leaves it to God. That's what he does. So the sailor doesn't respond to the grammarian arrogance and lack of adab, lack of manners, and when he broke his heart, right? Because ana inda, there's a beautiful hadith Qudsi that the Prophet, peace be upon him, mentioned, that he says that ana inda munkasiri qulubuhum, I am with the brokenhearted. God is with the brokenhearted. So his heart is broken. He doesn't respond, right? And he leaves it to God. What happens in there? Rumi has a beautiful line. He says, "Dil maranjan ke zahar dil ba khuda rahi hast." He said, please do not break any hearts, because every heart has a window that goes to the divine presence. There's a pathway from every heart to God. So don't break anybody's heart, right? So what happens in this moment when the sailor just abandons everything? His heart is broken, he doesn't respond. He says, "Bad kishti ra be girdab fikan." God sends this tornado, this wind that comes, and the boat is going from side to side and in a circle, right? Gof kishtiban badan nahwi bulan. Then the sailor shouted out to the grammarian, "Hich dani ashana kardan begu." Oh my grammarian friend, do you know how to swim? Gof ne ay khush jawab khub ru. He said, "No, I don't." Oh, handsome sailor, and very eloquent and handsome sailor. You know how the tide turns, right? Pun intended. How everything changed when now the boat is about to sink, right? And he doesn't know how to swim, and the sailor knows how to swim. Now he's saying, "Oh, my handsome sailor friend, oh, my eloquent sailor friend." What happened at the beginning when he had no adab with him, right? All of this, God is giving him the punishment already to the grammarian for his lack of adab, for his lack of manners. گفت کل عمرت ای نحوی فناست زان که کشتی غرق این گرداب هاست. He said, oh my grammarian friend, I'm afraid you have wasted all your life because this boat is about to sink into this ocean. Now look what Rumi does with this story. He takes it from Ainul Yaqeen to Haqqul Yaqeen. He says, Mahu mi bayad na nahu inja badan. He said, you need mahu. You don't need nahu. You need annihilation. You don't need grammar. Mahu is a very interesting word in Persian. It is when everything else just dissolves, just disappears, right? And it's kind of like taking a photo, like a portrait photo, when only one thing is on focus and everything is out of focus. That's mahu. He said you need to have one thing in focus, which is God, and everything else should be out of focus, right? Rumi said, I once had 1,000 desires, but when one desire to know you, all else melted away. And that's what he's trying to teach in this story as well. He said, Mahu mi bayad na nahu anja bedan. Gar tu mahwi bi khatar dar abran. If you are mahu, if you have been annihilated and you have trust in God, then jump into the water without any fear. آب دریا مرده را بر سر زند ور بود زنده ز دریا کی رهد. Because the nature of this ocean is that if you're alive, it will suck you until it kills you. That's the nature of the ocean. But if you're dead, it carries you on its head. چون بمردی تو ز اوصاف بشر بحر اسرارت زند بر فرق سر. When you die from these human qualities, these low human qualities, what the grammarian had, arrogance and lack of adab, it is then that the ocean will carry you on its head. What ocean is he talking about? Bahr Asrarat. Your ocean, the ocean of your mystery. You become the ocean. Your mystery becomes the ocean. And it elevates you on its head. And everything in the creation is created from water. There's water everything and everywhere. Right? That's a symbolism that Mawlana is using. In other words, anywhere you are, the ocean of your mysteries is always accompanying you, and it can elevate you. So why did he do that? He said, Mard nahwi ra az an dar dukhtim ta shama ra nahwa mahu amukhtin. He said, I just told you the story of the grammarian, the sailor. He said, he doesn't say actually I told you the story. He said dukhtim. He said, I sewed this story together. It's weaving the story because there's so much in it. He's bringing these parts together and weaving it. He said, I weave this story together in order for you to teach you the grammar of annihilation. The grammar of annihilation. So what is Rumi trying to teach us in this story? He's trying to teach us about fana. This concept of annihilation of the nafs, of the ego, of the desires, of mahu, of everything just disappearing, what we just talked about, and everything just going away. So he teaches us non-stop throughout the Masnavi about just leaving yourself, abandoning yourself, and stepping over your nafs and your ego and your desire in order for you to reach that station where you see things differently. Because once you reach that station of Kamal, you see everything through that light of perfection, of beauty, of ihsan, right? That's how you change yourself. So now going back to the story, the man, he's standing at the door and he's afraid to even knock on the door out of fear of losing adab. What does he do? Then he knocks and he stands there with full comportment. He said, and then he said, his beloved shouts from the inside, right? Who's at the door now? And then he responds, Gof bardar ham tuyi ay dil sitan. He said, it is you who's at the door as well, oh my beloved. گفت اکنون چون منی ای من درآ. گفت اکنون چون منی ای من درآ. He said, now that you became me, come. Come in. نیست کن جایی دو تن را در سرا. Because in this house, there's not enough room for two eyes. You have to abandon dualism. You have to abandon dualism. Rumi said, دویی از خود بیرون کردم، یکی دیدم دو عالم را، یکی بینم، یکی دانم، یکی جویم، یکی خوانم. He said, I abandoned dualism from myself. I saw oneness everywhere. Right? Everywhere I looked, I saw oneness. I saw one. He said, I seek one. I know one. I read one. Right? It's all about the one. What is this one? هو الأول هو الآخر هو الظاهر هو الباطن بغیر از هو و یا من هو دیگر چیزی نمیدانم. He's the first without a beginning, the last without an ending. He is the outwardly manifested and the inwardly hidden. Right? It is God. Right? And that's when you remove dualism, you become one. And this is why then he said, come inside. They became one. Because Rumi comes in the story at the end, he says, Ni Suzan ra sar rishte duta. He said, if you're trying to thread the needle cannot have two heads. It has to have one head. Right? It has to have one head in order for it to go through the eye of the needle. And that's what this is. Why is he teaching us all of these? In order for us to become a lover. Because the path of love is the fastest way to reaching the divine presence. There are many ways, but the path of love is the fastest way. And this is why Rumi says, حاصل عمرم سه سخن بیش نیست، خام بودم، پخته شدم، سوختم. He said, I summarized my life for you in 3 words. I was raw, I got cooked, I got burnt. سوختم و سوختم و سوختم تا هنر عاشقی آموختم. I burned and I burned and I keep burning until I master the art of love. So what do lovers do? What's the secret of lovers? One of the secret of lovers that they don't want anything from their beloved. See, the first time when you stood at the door, it is I. It is I. When you see yourself, you want something. It is when you don't see yourself, all you see is the beloved, and you want to give yourself to the beloved. And this is why we keep giving gifts to our beloved. If you love somebody, we give them gift. We don't expect any gift, but we give them gift. And this is why Mawlana Rumi says in the Diwan Shams, شکرانه دادی عشق را از تحفه ها و مال ها، هل مال را خود را بده. شکرانه شو, شکرانه شو. You have given so much gift as a sign of gratitude for love. Isn't it time to give yourself and become the gift? Become the gratitude, which is the highest station of love, is to become the gift. You are the gift. You are the gratitude. You become the gift. You become the gratitude. And that's what he's trying to teach us. The station of mahu, the station of fana, is for us not to see ourselves. So what are we? Rumi said we are like water in a pitcher, right? And the beloved is like an ocean, like a river, right? He said, آب کوزه چون در آب جو رود، محو گردد در وی او جو شود. آب کوزه چون در آب جو شود، محو گردد در وی او شود. He said, when the water of the pitcher falls into the river, right, it becomes mahu. We just talked about it loses itself. But what happens then? The river becomes it. It is not that he becomes the river, but it becomes one. That's the whole point, that you no longer exist and you become the river. What happens then? So now, we'll end, inshallah ta'ala, with this point from Mawlana Rumi. He said, this is when you're the pitcher of water. He said, when you're in the pitcher of water or in the cup, He said, this is when you're in the clouds covering you. You can't see your moon. You can't see your moon. All you see, arrogance is like clouds. Envy is like clouds. All of these diseases that human being, we actually, everybody has some to some degree, and this is why a Purification of the Heart book is essential to read at least once a year, just to purify ourselves from these diseases. What happens when you're in a cup is you're constricted, right? Why? Because of what we have brought onto ourselves. So Rumi says this. He says, when you fall into the river, then it is then that your moon comes out. It is then that you see the night sky. It is then that you see the sun and the moon. You see the cosmos, and you realize that you were constricting yourself. He said, happiness is when you're in the river, not when you're in the cup. You will never be happy in the cup, because you were not made to be in the cup. You were not made to be in the pitcher. You were made to be in the river, right? And he said, گفت بر گوش گل و خندانش کرد. گفت با سنگ و عقیق کانش کرد. He said, he whispered into the ear of the flower, the roses, and it made it laugh. And this is why the roses, they just keep laughing as they open up. They keep laughing. This is the symbolism for roses. As they bloom, they laugh. Rumi said, Gola khandan ke nakhandat chi konad. He said, if the roses don't laugh, what should they do? They were created to laugh, because there's a secret that God has put in them. They know they are exactly where they're supposed to be, and they're doing exactly what they were created to do. That's why they're happy all the time. All of creation, all of existence, all of cosmos, instead of happiness and joy, everything is laughing. Everything is instead of joy and ecstasy, except the human being, because we take ourselves from the river, we put ourselves in a cup, and we think this is life. Rumi says, no, you have to go back to the, if you want, you have to go back to the river. That's where happiness is. That's what happiness is. Once you become that in the river, it is then that you are the symbol of love. You are the symbol of gratitude. You are the symbol of happiness. You become, Rumi says, خانه شادی است دلم غصه ندارم چی کنم هرچه به عالم ترشی دورم و بیزارم از او. He said, my heart is an abode of happiness. I have no grief, no depression, no sadness. He said, do you know why? He said, because I turned my heart into an abode of happiness. I became happiness. I am happiness. He said, I stayed away from everything that is bitter. I abandoned the cup and the pitcher. I jumped into the ocean. I jumped into the river. I'm no longer in the cup. I'm no longer in the ocean, in the pitcher. I'm in the ocean. I am in the river. That's why I'm happy. And once you become like that, you're no longer just happy. This is the amazing thing. This is the secret, is right here. You become the symbol of happiness. You become contagious. Whoever you sit with, they become happy. People, you will take people to the land of sa'ada, of happiness, as you walk. As you walk, you save people from their depression and sadness, because you are the symbol. You are like the light that shows other people the path, and they come with you to where? To the station of happiness. And that's what every single human being wants. Aristotle said the greatest good, what is it? What is it that everybody wants? Everybody wants one thing. It's different for every human being. Some wants to become a doctor, some an engineer, some a carpenter, some a mountain climber, whatever you want to become, right? But at the end, everybody wants one thing. They want to be happy. Happiness is that what we are in search of, right? Happiness, and this is what Rumi is telling us, that don't just search for it. Become happiness. Become the symbol of happiness. And that is only through this path of illumination, a path that you find yourself, you find your Lord. And through yourself, you find your Lord. And through your light of God, you find yourself. And once you do that, it is then that you reach this station. And once you reach this station, it is then that you become happiness. Anybody who's with you, they're happy. Anyone who is near you, they're happy, right? And it is then that you no longer even have to speak. And there are a lot of people, they want to do da'wah, right? You know, da'wah of the tongue or da'wah of the heart. There's a difference. Rumi said, do da'wah of the heart, right? One of the Urdu poets said, Fana itna ho ja ho mein tere zaat mein e Allah, jo mujhe dekh le use tujh se muhabbat ho ja. He said, I will become fana, I will become mahu, I become annihilated in your love to the degree, Ya Allah, that whoever sees me, they fall in love with you. Oh God, I'm going to annihilate myself in your love to a degree that whoever sees me, they fall in love with you. And that is real happiness. That is happiness. And we hope that we can reach that level where our heart speaks and we are happy. And our surroundings, we help people reach that station of happiness. Thank you very much for listening. Jazakallah khair. وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
Hello and welcome to the live part of our Rumi Revolution of the Self event. I'm your chair, Ramona Ali, and I am so honored to be welcoming Ustadh Feraidoon Mojadedi, who will be joining us live from Istanbul. Ustadh Feraidoon is a community leader, lecturer, and entrepreneur based in the Bay Area in California. He was born in Herat in Afghanistan, which is the birthplace of Rumi, and he memorized Rumi's poems from the age of 5. So he's literally been brought up on Rumi, and he grew up in a household that was illuminated with the love of mystic poetry. Ustadh Feraidoon now teaches classes on Rumi from the US to Australia and from Malaysia to Konya in Turkey, which is where Mawlana Rumi is laid to rest. Ustadh Feraidoon is also a writer and performer of a play called Layla and Majnun, which debuted in Australia in 2019. Ustadh, thank you so much for so generously giving us your time today, and thank you for that beautiful introduction that we just saw.
Appreciate it. Jazakallah khair. Thank you. Glad to be with you. I'm coming live from Istanbul. I hope the internet and everything is working properly. And
yeah, you sound great. We're going to have a brief conversation around 15 minutes or less, and then we'll open it up to audience Q&A. So please, to everyone watching, just submit your questions in the chat box, and we'll try our best to put as many as possible to the Ustadh in the time allocated. Now, Ustadh, you mentioned so wonderfully and so beautifully in that video that we can only connect, with divine light if we connect with our hearts. And, we carry so much trauma in our hearts. We carry disappointment and grief and, and pain. So how do we embrace those pains instead of letting them overwhelm us? And how do we, stop ourselves from inhibiting and restricting ourselves from, allowing that light to enter our hearts?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Pain is part of life. If you want to have a life without any pain, that's in paradise. Allah has made a place in the hereafter that there's no pain. In this dunya, for as long as we live, there's going to be pain, there's going to be suffering, this is part of the dunya. If you approach the world like that, it's a different worldview, completely different worldview, where the expectation is not perfection in this world, because the world is not supposed to be perfect. If the world is perfect, if you have no pain and no suffering, and everything is exactly how you want it to be, then why would people go to God? What would drive them to God? What would drive them to themselves to rise to that level? Rumi said, pain is the leader inside of you. For as long as you don't have the pain, no leadership will come out of you. And he said that, when it was the pain that drove Mary, the mother of Jesus, to the tree, and a dead tree came to life and fruits came out of it. Why? It was the pain of childbirth that drove Mary to her Jesus. And Rumi said, what Allah gives you is to give birth to the Jesus that is hidden inside of each and every one of us. Every human being carries a Jesus inside of them. And you are not going to give birth to your Jesus until you go through the pain of childbirth. And it's not something that, every story that you read about people who made it in this world, whether they're politicians, whether they're musicians, whether they're actors, if you read their stories, they all went through pain and suffering. And that's but the power that Allah has given us, it's amazing. Helen Keller said the world is filled with suffering, but the world is also filled with overcoming of suffering. That we have these people who overcome the worst of situations. So a lot of time it's, I give example of my own self. I came to practicing my religion through pain, and it was the pain of betrayal that I had to go through in order to find God. So if I didn't have that pain, I don't know what I would be. So I'm so happy that I had those 6 months or so time of really pain and suffering. Then I found something that is worth, if it was for 6 years or 6,000 years, it was worth it. But, when you find Allah, because once you find Allah, everything else, it disappears. And this is why the beauty of paradise is when you inhale the first breath, before you exhale it in paradise, when you inhale the first breath, Allah asks you, do you know any pain and suffering? Do you remember any pain and suffering? These are people who had pain and suffering all their lives in the world. Their entire life, they had pain and suffering. And they say, Ya Allah, we don't remember any pain and suffering. One breath in paradise removes every pain and suffering of all your life. I wish I didn't know. Because Aisha said the hadith that she was talking to the Prophet ﷺ, that about the pain, and the Prophet said even the pick of a thorn, that when you remove it, just a little bit pain, he said Allah removes sins from you, and if you're sinless, Allah elevates your station. So alhamdulillah, Murad al-Hajj rahimahullah said, what good is a body that doesn't have pain? It is through pain that we connect with ourselves and we connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't ask for pain. Nobody asks for pain in Islam. We don't. But if Allah gives you, know that there's a secret in it. Attar Nishapuri said, he said, kufr kafir ra wa din dindar ra, zarre darda dili attar ra. He said, the kuffar, they want their kufr, they want their women, and they want their dancing, and they want their alcohol and their parties. He said, the Muslims, what do the Muslims want? He said, they want their prayer and their fasting and their zuhud and their qiyam al-layl, all these beautiful things. He said, what does Attar want? He wants a little pain in his heart. He said, put some pain in, in other words, when I have pain, it's when you call upon Allah with pain, Rumi said, that is the Ismul A'zam. That is the greatest name of Allah. When you call with pain, he said, Rumi said that, everyone can call upon God. Everyone can call. Oh, but the calling of the lovers is that calling when you're in pain and in suffering and you call upon Allah. That calling. That is.
Ustadh, sorry, we just had a few glitches there, but I think we got some of the essence of what you were saying. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yeah,
yes,
I can hear
great.
you clearly.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was wonderful. And we live in an age of distraction and noise, and there's lots of envy, and we're lonelier than ever before. We're unhappier than ever before. So what you said about the river and the cup, don't be part of the cup, be part of the river to find our happiness. It just makes you feel so much more significant and greater. So, you know, what kind of mechanisms can we use to kind of get ourselves away from that noise and from that unhappiness and loneliness?
In reality, alone with Allah, you're not alone. You know, Children's Letter to God, there's a book, and a 5-year-old wrote a letter. It says, "Dear God, ever since I found you, I never felt alone. Ever since I found you, I never felt alone." And that's a fitra way of this is a 5-year-old. It's a fitra way. It's a way the innate nature of the human being is that when they find Allah, they're not alone. Loneliness, now people have, they say, oh, we have 5,000 friends on social media, and these are all suffering from being alone, right? Because that's not friends. This social life, this most of the problems that we have is because we don't have real friends. We don't have real families. We don't have real get-togethering. We don't have real conversation. It's all becoming electronic. It's all becoming social media and social meetings and social talking. And even like gatherings now, because of the COVID, we have programs that's all through this medium of electronics. But it's the effect of the human being. We're social creatures, and it's real meaning that we need each other. We need each other. That's why, you know, children, they need their parents to touch them, like as infant, as young kids, even when they're teenagers, to touch, to hug them, to kiss them, to hold them. That there is this. It's not all electronic. It's not like, that's what we're lacking. Most of our suffering, most of the loneliness is not because people don't have enough online friends. No, they have tons of it. They don't have friends talk without being on their phone. Now, here's how you know if you have real friends and you have or not. A real friend, if you're sitting with them, you would not turn on your phone. If you're turning on your phone and you're on your phone and he's on his phone or she's on her phone, that means you're not friends. You don't. How could you? This is preferred over the person next to you, and that's the story that Mawlana Rumi has about the man who's in love with a woman. So there's this man who's in love with a woman. He writes letter to this woman, beautiful letters that, oh, I'm in love with you. I love you so much. And I this and that, you know, people traditionally, there wasn't text or email. It was all love letters. And the woman used to collect the love letters of the beloved, right? So it was just really beautiful. So he writes all these love letters about how much he loves her, how much he wants to be with her, how much he cares about her, how much pain he's going through every day because of her. Finally, this girl says, come into the chamber. So the man goes into the chamber, and there she is, and there he is. The door is locked. They're in the room. And she said, here I am. Here I am. We're together finally. And he says, 1 minute. Can I borrow a pen and paper? So he gets a pen and paper. He starts to write a letter, how much he loves you. I love you this much. I care about you. And he gives the letter to her. And she says to him, he said, the letters were to get you to the room. Now you have to abandon the letters. But it seems like you don't love me. You love writing letters. And that's what it is. There's a lot of friends sitting together. Sometimes it's so tragic to see a group of friends sitting together, all of them on their phones. That means that you really don't love them. You don't care about them. You love writing letters, but you don't care about the beloved. And that's where all the unhappiness. Once we are together, if we have real family, real friends, we'll get together, it will change, because the human heart needs gathering, needs real people. It's not about the happiness is not a psychological state. This is the greatest lie told by the Western medicine, because they make money through that. But we believe that happiness is a spiritual state of being. It's a spiritual state of being, because happiness is part of human being. Define happiness because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resides in the heart of every human being. It is not anywhere else. You can go search. Rumi said, I searched everywhere for happiness. I couldn't find it. I searched everywhere. I went to the mountaintops, I've been to the valley, I went to the depth of the ocean. I went everywhere. He said, I went to the Kaaba, I went to Jerusalem, I went to Medina, I went to Mount Judy, I went everywhere. I couldn't find him. I couldn't find him. The symbolism of God, which is for happiness. But then I came back home. There he was all alone, sitting right there. That's what happiness is. You can't go search for it anywhere else. You have to do an inward travel and find it. And you would see that everything would just disperse, because the nature of light is, even if you have 1,000 different darknesses in a room, one light comes in, everything disperses. That's the nature of light. When light comes in, all of darknesses just disappears.
And also the opportune time to open it up. It's already gone quite fast to Q&A now. So I will just pick out some questions that have come up in the chat. One of them is that, Rumi is known to be one of the best-selling authors in the world, particularly in the West. Perhaps one reason for this is the universal nature of his teachings, and that people from all traditions and religions can relate to him. Is it possible to truly understand Rumi in his true essence without an understanding of the teachings of Islam?
That's a beautiful question, and I have to say that I have mixed feeling about that the answer. In a way, it is, you can understand at certain level. At the basic level, yes. But at the level of meanings, no. It's really hard to understand Mawlana Rumi if you don't have a solid foundation in the religion. There's some people like Reynold Nicholson who studied Mawlana Rumi, who studied Persian literature, who studied Arabic literature, mastered him, and then he knew the Islamic tradition really well. People like that are very unique, and I think that they can understand even at the level of meanings. But majority of the stuff that we are seeing in the West, they are more like social media posts, and what Coleman Barks did made Rumi really mainstream. Those are basic things, and I think everybody can benefit from it. And whether they're Muslim, they're not Muslim, Christian, Jews, Hindu. I have a lot of, people come, and always I meet people, a lot of Hindus, Jains, that they love Mawlana Rumi, that they honor him, they love him, they respect him. I meet Jews, a lot of Jews. That I actually met a Jew that he said he was reading Rumi in the early 80s. He said in 1979 he started reading Rumi. So in America, so there are a lot of people who read Rumi and they respect him. I think it's a great gateway into the religion as well. So people will, through Mawlana Rumi, they want to understand Islam, which is a beautiful way to navigate into the religion as well.
Thank you so much for Wajiha Naqvi as well for that question. I mean, there was a meme going around. I remember it said and it had a picture of Rumi illustration saying, "My poetry is about Allah, not about your girlfriend." Because a lot of people are kind of perhaps hijacking and commercializing his poetry, and so the soul of his poetry is actually.
To be fair. They have done that, even with the Persian have done that. It's not new. All of these songs that the singer singing Rumi's poem in the songs, I mean, I always thought it was about girls when I was a little kid, until when I was a teenager, I thought all of the Persian poetries were about women. I swear to God, that's what I thought. That's why I memorized a lot of it when I was like 14, 13, 12, 11, because I thought it was about the dunya and about the woman and about girls. That's what I thought. And then once I understood that this is another level of meanings, it also making sense. Even, everybody uses this poetry at the outward meaning of it. So, it is, but what if I say, no matter, as long as it brings people closer to Allah, as long as it brings people closer to the religion, then what's the problem? Maybe that's how things need to get started. So it's all good. Let people come in. I'd rather they memorize a line of poetry of Rumi that they think is about a girlfriend, and maybe 10 years from now, they realize the meaning of that and it manifests in them and they will turn to Allah, inshallah.
Inshallah. Yeah, that's
I'm a
very,
hopeful
very
kind of guy.
Yeah, no, any path that will bring them to Rumi and to the ideas would be great. So another question comes in from Halima Ahmed. She says, is it possible to be annihilated in God's love and still be completely present in the consciousness of oneself as a slave to God? Would you like me to repeat that?
Of course, that's called the station of baqa. So you have the station of fana and then your station of baqa. So for us, we are supposed to be in the world. We're not supposed to be in this, pseudo spirituality where, people say, oh, I'm in fana. I mean, those are, the reality of it is that our bodies is at work. Let's say you're a doctor, you're an engineer, you're a lawyer, or you're a merchant and you're doing your work, your daily chores, you're doing it, right? Once I had a program on Clubhouse about a month ago, and then so the program went for long. They said we have a Q&A, and so there was while they were doing the Q&A, the questions were very long, and so I started washing dishes because my wife wasn't home. And she was coming home, and I said, there was a lot of dishes. So I started washing dishes, and I muted it was an audio thing. So I muted my mic, and when I spoke, I stopped and I answered. Then I said, they said, there's a, is it okay? I said, no, it's okay, but I'm washing dishes, I have to, but it's just like that. In reality, you could be washing dishes or you could be doing something, but as long as your heart is with Allah. Allah is not asking you to keep your hands occupied all the time with the subha. Say, no, I'm not doing work. I'm just doing subha all day. No, that's not what he's asking for you. He's telling you to do dhikr in your heart. Make sure your heart is attached to me, because will do that which is beautiful. This is when you ethical of character. Work, whether you're a taxi driver or you do the work, you're in the dunya, your heart is in the malakut. That's the difference. Your heart is always with Allah, but your body is you have to earn a living. You have to talk to people, you have to go shopping, you have to clean, all of these things we do. Just the heart, the connection of the heart is very important. That's always with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's how the Muslims, the Ummah used to be like that.
Wonderful. So you can do the dishes and still be annihilated. That's the bottom line. That's excellent. Ustadh, someone asked, just for a reference, it was which book and verse of the Matnavi contains the story of the sailor and the grammarian? And that's from Safwan.
I think it's in book 1 or 2. I don't remember, because I have a 2 volume together. I have in a 3 volume set. So always volume 1 and 2 for me is 1 volume when I'm reading my Masnavi. So I have a 3 volume set. So it's in book 1 or 2.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite poems. There's so much in that poem, the grammarian, the sailor, that actually you can write books on it. Because one of the things for people who are studying Rumi, one advice I would give you that I wish somebody would have given me when I was studying it, is that you have to find yourself in the story. If you don't find yourself in the story, that means you didn't understand the story, or you're not being real. You're just reading it for show. You're not reading it from the heart. If you read it from the heart, you find yourself. Either you're the grammarian, all right? I'll tell you who you are. You're either the grammarian, you're the sailor, or you're the actual boat, or you're the ocean, or you're the tornado that's coming, right? Or you're the voice of wisdom when it comes and it tells them, you need annihilation, you don't need grammar, right? Or you're that feeling of pain and suffering in the heart of the sailor, in that moment that the grammarian breaks his heart. Or you're the foul word, the painful word that came out of grammarian's mouth and broke the sailor's heart. Or you're the response to the sailor's heart. right? That the tornado is coming. All of those are characters. Characters, not just people in the thing. All of those are character, right? Or you're the water that's bringing the dead up to the surface, or you're the water that's taking the living into the ocean. So you have to find yourself, and once you find yourself, it all makes sense to you, and you change. Sometimes you're the sailor, and then 5 years from now you read the same story, you're the grammarian, and then 5 years later you read the story, you're the ocean. So people change in life. Nobody remains the same, but you find yourself in these stories and you try to figure out each one. Why did Rumi put them in there? This is one thing I've been working on for decades. Of why a grammarian? Why a nahwi, not a sarfi? You know, you can do nahwi, you can do sarf, right? Why not balagha? Why not, I think about these things all the time, right? Why not a mufassir, someone who will commentator of Quran? Why couldn't he be a muhaddith? Why a grammarian? In that nahwi, why? I mean, these are all like, you can spend so much time in this and really benefit from the wisdom inside of it. Because at the end he says, he said, I weave this story for you. It's like getting a thread and a needle and weaving it, right? And that's the whole, in other words, there's so much in this. Through the net, through the patterns, you have to delve into it to get all these ma'anis. Long answer for a short question.
That was a beautiful, beautiful answer. Thank you. That's such a powerful lesson, that a reminder that you tell us to find yourself in the story. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything. So it's such an important reminder. Thank you for so beautifully putting that. There's another question from Sabahat Chutai. She says it's quite a loaded question, but as part of the inward journey, how does one heal their trauma in Islam, as it's one of the biggest barriers that people can face?
The trauma of what?
So,
I didn't get the question. How does one?
I think what she means perhaps is that the traumas that people might face because of the barriers or challenges they
of the journey of finding themselves.
It could even be,
okay.
It's used to oppress some people. So yeah.
Yeah. One of the things in this journey, the Western psychology is a disaster in terms of the way we look at it, because we don't look at the negative of what happens in our life. If you start doing that what you have done as negative, what has been done to you as negative, all these things, whether people were abused or beaten or tortured or things of that nature, then you're not going towards light, you're going towards darkness. The journey is a journey to light. There's a difference when you go towards the light and when you run away from darkness. There's a difference. We never run away from darkness. We don't look at darkness. Once you turn on the light, you don't see darkness anymore. So all of those things, Rumi said, the nature of Tawbah, let's say we have done wrong. Let's say we have done a lot of wrongs. People, they did drugs, let's say they did fornication, la qadar, they did stealing, whatever they did. And then they made Tawbah. Rumi said, when you make Tawbah, all of those things that you've done is your dirty clothing. He is throw away clothes. One away back to the garbage bin, those filthy clothing again, and you're backward. And Rumi said, very beautiful, he said, you become straight and Allah will straighten your past. No matter how crooked we were in the past, if we are straight now, Allah will make the past straight. This is the way, the generosity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, well, in the past, saying, oh my God, I did this, I did that. No, we look at this illuminating moon of ours in move. You have no access to it. No matter how much. This is why Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan. Right? I seek refuge to you from ham and hazan. What is the anxiety of the future and the grief of the past? Because those two do not exist. They don't exist. We don't know if we're gonna, those anxieties we have about the future, are we gonna face them? The grief of the past is gone. The only thing we have is in present. What we have is now. And if we turn on the light now and start moving forward, there's nothing, there's no pain, there's no suffering. It's all happiness. It's all sa'ada. It's all beauty. And Rumi said, it's like you open a window and there's a little garden in front of you with roses. And then there's a door. You open it, there's a bigger garden. And then you see a gate. You open it, there's a massive garden. He said, it's like paradise within a paradise within a paradise. You just keep going into this rose garden, into paradise. And you create a paradise in the world. And there is a paradise in the world. Allah has put a paradise in the world, and it's the human heart. And we can actually live a really happy life spiritually, even though we might be suffering. People might be suffering financially, might be suffering mentally or physically. There are people who have pain, and I know people who have pain all the time, chronic pain, but they're still happy. When you ask them, how are you? Alhamdulillah. Why? Because this is where real happiness is here. They know the meaning of the pain. They know why. Because they know when they call upon Allah, the heavens and the earth shake because they're calling it with pain. خواندن بیدار از افسردگی است. Right? He said, Rumi said, anyone, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can call upon God without pain. خواندن با درد از دلبردگی است. But the one who call upon Allah with pain, that's the way of the lovers. Those are the lovers of God. And that's priceless.
Thank you so much, Ustadh. That was wonderful, and thank you all for your excellent questions. This session has been recorded and will be uploaded onto the Bradford Literature Festival YouTube channel. Also, do check that out. But I just want to thank you again, Ustadh Feraidoon Mojadedi. You has been wonderful, wonderful wisdoms and eloquence, and thank you for drawing us closer to both Rumi and to ourselves through this wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I apologize for the internet. Inshallah, hopefully next year the programs will be live so we can skip all of these and see people and face to face, inshallah ta'ala.
That would be, we hope fervently for that. So thank you, but we got so many gems, so we managed to get a lot from you. So thank you again.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, night, wherever you are. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.